Hello, and welcome to Shades of Pleasure, a podcast celebrating pleasure, sexuality, and the vibrant, inclusive spectrum of love, gender, and relationships. I'm your host, Mo, and with me are my co-hosts, Melissa, Wayne, and Kelly. And together we hope to dismantle tropes that no longer suit us and change the narrative towards more authentic living.
I think we all thought we were recording.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi. How have you been? Everyone's naked, sunbathing today.
I'm hungry. I stay hungry.
Hey, Mo. Sorry for the third time.
Got it right this time. Yeah, no, I'm enjoying the sunshine. So it's nice. I'm in a different location than y'all.
I'm in a different location than y'all, too. It's sunny here, too.
Yeah.
So Mo's reading a book called Polywise.
Yeah.
And it is the same author as Polysecure, Jessica Fern. And there's a particular chapter 5, that she wants to talk about, which it talks about differentiation and how that can help you open up your relationship, and kind of explains the common trip ups or whatnot. So take it.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, I feel so seen and heard, Melissa. That was so good. So she talks about when she opened up, like the things that she started noticing that were like monogamy hangover things that were making it more difficult for her and her partner to feel like regulated in opening up. And so one of like little things, like she talks about like how they're even like little things down to their passwords were like some amalgam of their name and their birth dates. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that are just joint together. And even though you're practicing autonomy and independence and things like that, it's these sort of monogamous tropes that can make it difficult for partners when they're opening up for the first time. And so some of the things that she recommends in terms of like building your autonomy is like, she's like, start going out alone, maybe taking trips alone, like doing things separately so that you become more familiar with your partner doing things without you and things like that. So I thought that was it's a really interesting chapter on. The other thing that she talks about is like how monogamy in our culture is really defined in a sort of like way that supports this codependence. And until you start doing the work of opening up and or trying to differentiate from your partner, we don't actually have opportunities in our culture to sort of like break away from that codependence, right? Like it's really intrinsic to the way that we are socialized, that codependence. And so when people are opening up, one of the things that she says is like, this can be very difficult because of that. And sort of piggybacking on that, the other book that I'm reading is The Polyamory Paradox by Irene Morning. And she talks a lot about somatics. And similarly, she has a similar take on it, except she's talking about it from like a somatic perspective. Like, how do we prepare our body to open up? Jessica Fern's talking about, we practice, going out separately. And Irene is talking about this kind of how this prepares our body from a somatic level to regulate. Does that make sense? And they both talk about like titrating into full-blown, if you're looking to be full-blown relationship anarchy, or you're looking to do non-hierarchical, like you've got to titrate, because you've got to titrate your nervous system to get used to it.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay.
Yeah, that was the part that I found the most interesting of like this has to be slow enough to give your nervous system time to sort of catch up to these different responses you're going to have.
Yeah. And she goes on to say that when a couple is doing that, yes, it does lean into sort of couple privilege, because the couple is now saying, hey, we need to slow down or we need to take it slow so that we can acclimate essentially. And she talks about how the best way to enact couple privilege is by, guess what, Kelly? Front loading. So front loading
Oh,
to other
nice.
partners. Yeah, front loading to all your other partners, like, hey, we're just opening up. This is going to take us some time. So I need to take it really slow with you. Right.
Yeah.
And being able to be so transparent with your other partners that in order for us to do this in a healthy way, we need to slow down. Right.
Yeah.
Because, if you open up really fast and then you have to backpedal and slow down, which is also fine. Like all of these authors are talking about like how all of that is fine as long as we front load, as long as you are able to, with care, let your other partners know like, hey, I need to do this thing, so I may be less available or something to that effect.
Really quick. Hey, Kelly, for those who may be new or just joining us and hearing us for the first time, can you explain to them what front loading is? And the reason I asked is because yesterday we did a panel and or Tuesday we did a panel, and so a lot of people joined, and what we found out is that a lot of people love what we're doing, and all the people that are out here speaking about things, but they feel overwhelmed with a lot of terminology. They feel overwhelmed with things they may not understand. So I'm just for myself, I'm trying to slow things down whenever we use terminology, just to kind of like let everybody know kind of what that means so they can kind of be on the same page with us if they're following us. So could you explain to them what front loading is again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, and I'm not reading the book Mo's reading, so I don't know if she uses it exactly the way I do. But for me, it's basically, it's kind of based on the concept of when things are going great, you don't want to rock the boat, and when you're dysregulated because things are blowing up, it's the worst time to try to come up with new techniques or new ways to talk about things. And so having conversations ahead of time based on the best you can, based on what you know about yourself, what you know about your partner, your lived experience. So like, hey, we can sort of guess, we can have a jumping off point of where we think the things that might come up for us, things that we've seen come up in the past. So let's go ahead now at the beginning, before it does come up, go ahead and set some guidelines around that. Go ahead and set up some shared vocabulary around that, and do the best we can. And then when something comes up, it's like, okay, we have something to refer to. We have a jumping off point. And if it's working, great. And if not, you can tweak it from there. But it's basically just, getting ahead of the problem.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. There
Is
you
that
go.
how she uses it, Mo? Sorry.
Well, I think she's also talking about like, hey, if this happens and you're already like, and you need to sort of backpedal or you need to, set some parameters, like do so with care, right? Like, she's a therapist and she talks about what we all talk about on here is that by the time most people show up in our office, they've already opened up. Right. Few people come into our office and say, hey, we're thinking about opening up. Can you help us conduct a plan? Right. If
Yeah.
they do that at some point, they open up maybe before you as a therapist and they all decide together. So, what's happening, I think, commonly in this process is that couples open up, they think they're going to be good with it, and then they start to experience like different varying degrees of dysregulation. And you can't front load everything, but you can with care let your partners know like, and maybe it's less of a front loading and more of a like leaning into like authenticity and leaning into being able to be as transparent as possible. Like, hey, this is going on. I know this goes against the non-hierarchical or this goes against relationship anarchy. And so we're enacting some form of couple privilege so that we can take care of our nervous systems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you spoke to a lot of couples out here, and I hope that a lot of people can hear what you said, Mo, when you said that, a part of when you're speaking about front loading, saying, hey, look, we're kind of newer to this, so, this outside connection I'm having with you, we may have to take it a little slower. Can we slow it down because of my relationship with my partner? I think that is huge. I think that would be a huge just acknowledgement for a lot of couples to even to say that out loud. Like, hey, what, like when Melissa said this in the past before, like what room does our relationship have for like certain things, and like can yeah, what can we what is our limitation that we may have, or what can we are we okay with doing and not okay with, like within the confines of our relationship? Can we have a full blown relationship outside of you and I? Can it be a deeply emotional relationship? Can it be a highly sexual relationship? What can we have? And if we know that it's a sensitive subject within a you know confines of our relationship, then yes, expressing that to the person that we're connecting with, I think it could be super helpful in how we navigate this space with all parties involved.
Yeah.
I know you had something to say earlier.
I kind of lost it. I think it was addressed though. Because I remember just wanting to say that I think that it was cool how the books seem to kind of complement each other. Because I was gonna Mo mentioned something about being socialized to, what did you say, Mo? Being socialized? Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't
No,
matter.
I talked about the monogamy stuff being socialized to be codependent, right?
To be
To be.
codependent. Yeah, being socialized to be codependent. There you go. Um, and how that makes sense, how it would be difficult to kind of start the differentiating or the titrating because, we talked about attachment so many times in here. It's like the the quote unquote insecure attachment, is seemingly seeking the opposite of that, is like wanting to get closer, wanting to attach, wanting to feel the safeness, the closeness, so things like differentiating could feel in and of itself like a threat, even though it could be really helpful,
Totally.
but complementing that with not just the socialization of it, but also the relational part and the nervous system, reality and kind of using that as a supplement can be really helpful. So I think that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Um, then with that
Yeah.
said, I was sitting here listening to all of you feeling like a newbie. I was like, whoa, I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed. My nervous system was feeling overwhelmed a little bit. Like, wow, that's a lot. I remember how easily we could get to that space of like, okay, like feeling overwhelmed or confused or doubting, or just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we even here? Like, this is too much, it's so much. So how helpful it can be to just kind of remember the bigger picture, remember your personal whys, remember the thing that you're wanting to do together, can just help you like anchor back in and not get so caught up in the like day-to-day reactions or whatnot. So
Yeah. Her partner chimes in on this book too, and he talks about when she first started differentiating, even though it was a super healthy thing, like how for him it felt like massive rejection, right? And so because we're so conditioned to be that codependent, when a partner, whether they're your nesting partner or someone that you're, just getting to know, when somebody starts to establish boundaries that are different, but what you're talking about, Melissa, is that anxious attachment comes into play, right? Like he knew that it was a healthy thing that she was doing, but it also felt like rejection,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So those things can exist simultaneously.
Yes.
And to
Absolutely.
your point, Melissa, like, yeah, you've been doing this for 20 years. And I think, like all of us have been exploring some aspect of open and non monogamy for a long, long time. And it's still like the messages are so steeped in our culture, right? Like she's talking about the passwords, but she also mentions things that I mentioned on this podcast a couple weeks ago. Like you turn on the radio and it's about the one, and all of these songs are about finding the one. Like it is like entrenched in our society, it's conditioned into our bones. Like, you know, this differentiating thing is really hard pressed in the culture, the macro culture that we live in.
Yeah.
One second.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say, and even with that, like with that said, I like when I'm working with my clients, I've realized that before I was so enthusiastic about like, yeah, let's go out there and do it, but I've kind of shifted my stance in a sense of like, let's slow way down. Let's take this really, really slow, because something can happen and it could set us all the way back and make us feel like we don't want to do this. So let's take it slow. So when something does happen, we can kind of pause and kind of talk about it. And and it's because to your point, because everything out here, well, so many things out here, not everything, but so many things out here are geared towards monogamy and couple centered, and so there's not a lot of support out here, not a lot of things that look like the things that we may be talking about or working towards. So how do we navigate these spaces? And so yeah, just kind of really just kind of taking the traveling the terrain kind of slow, a lot slower. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's okay to acknowledge that something feels like rejection, I think, and to acknowledge that maybe it's, even though it feels like rejection, it is healthy. Because I think at our core, like I mean, we come into this world alone, we leave alone. We've heard that cliche sort of like, and spiritually, I think we're interconnected to everyone, right? And so I think it's a journey to sort of like find that balance. And then we've got these like overarching messages in our culture about monogamy and soulmates and finding the one. And like, it's a lot to navigate for us as therapists, for our clients, for us as humans, you know.
Yeah, I just read a post that I liked the other just recently. I think maybe just yesterday, the other day from I forgot her name, Kat Myers, I think, or something like that.
Dr. Kat?
Yes, there you
Kat
go.
Meyer, yeah.
Kat Meyer, yeah. And she had a post about like what you're talking about, the soulmate, finding your person, finding the one, and just the stress that it can put on us, our bodies, our nervous systems, our day to day. It's like we can't really, be here. It's like we're just trying to get that to the place, and we're constantly in the seeking and the searching and the all the what if and whatnot.
Hmm.
And as a person who has like a romantic bone, like I like all that. I'm definitely a rom-com chick and all that stuff. Um, I liked the part where she says it's not about, not doing that, or it's yeah, still honoring that desire or whatnot, but also kind of integrating it more into your life, and like finding some steadiness in like the present, like in the moment of like what's here now, and not letting go of that desire, but also continuing to live your life and not putting your entire life on pause, like and centering around finding your person. So,
Yeah, I'm actually
or
reading
keeping your person, or
Kat's
being,
for
yeah,
yeah.
that too, because we might have our person, and we might finally make it there, but then, feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta keep my person, and and that's scary too. And yeah, so sorry, Mo, what were you saying? You're what?
I'm reading Kat's post right now.
Hmm.
The
Read it out
fucking
loud to us.
Yeah, so the front it's like a um carousel of photos, and the first one says, the fuck when you realize this is your person and the search is finally over. And the next slide says, how much energy do we spend on the search for, quote, our person? Sometimes I think of that search as worshiping a false idol of societal expectation, keeping us stuck in this perpetual state of searching and preventing us from complete presence and enjoyment of life around us. And I will also be quite honest, the relief of finding him, loving him, and being loved by him has been the most profound. So our task is not to denounce one over the other, saying one is higher or more saintly. Denouncing is a strong energy of pushing away and not often the full truth inside. Our task is rather to integrate the desire for while simultaneously desiring what we have here and now.
Yep.
So yeah, I think to your point though, like the searching takes us out of the present moment. And that's what's wrong with a lot of, dating and apps and things like that.
And that applies in the non-monogamous journey as well too, you know. I mean, we know that when people come and they want to open up, I mean, right away they're like, how do we meet people? Where do we find, how do we get this thing started and going? And again, that's not wrong, of course. Like that's, it's not to, what did she say, to denounce it, because that would be denying an aspect of you. But yeah, to just, being mindful of that. So
I think, yeah, we all desire to be loved, to have intimacy, to have connection, have passion, right? Like we all want that. Um, but what happens, I think, a lot of times, and we do see that a lot in non-monogamy, is the hunt for that excitement, right?
Yeah, and I think those kind of tropes make it seem like there's only one correct way. Only one thing equals success. It has to look just one way. And it's scary when you're out in the world doing things differently than how other people are doing it, or what's accepted in your culture, or what's accepted. And so that idea of, oh wait, there's one and you got to do everything to keep it and you're not successful until you found it. I think that's a scary thing for folks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you just made me think, Kelly, about like, I remember one time like I felt like, well, this is not even what today. What I feel like is I feel like to Melissa's point when she had said, "When I know I refer to Melissa a lot because some things that she had given me back in the day that I just didn't understand and get, and then now they just make so much sense." But like how labels can be so limiting, like because when you place a label, now you have to be this thing and have to look like this, and it's all the things, right? When we're so multifaceted and we're so unique, and one thing works for one person, works totally different for another person. So when someone says, "Oh, you're polying wrong," or you're like, poly can look like so many different things for so many different people. How we have our boundaries and how we establish our relationship and so many things, like, and so it's so many possibilities and options out there, so yeah, to get stuck on this, oh, this is how, this one's supposed to look, it's just so limiting. And now we're doing this thing where we're forever chasing, and soon somebody don't look the way we want them to look, we tend to want to feel easier to walk away from the relationship or end the relationship because, oh yeah, you're not the one for me, and no, they're better than the most that you've had, and it's just so many different things, that I thought about when you were talking, Kelly.
Yeah.
well, I like these book options, these resources. I've struggled to read a book in a long time, but I love the little, summaries that you give, Mo. I mean, just those snippets alone can sometimes feel profound, to hear non-monogamy being talked in, I don't know, in different perspectives from different lenses. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kelly.
No, go ahead, respond to her.
I was just going to say, like, in my deep dive of reading all of the latest non-monogamy books, because, for a long time it was like, these are the core books: Ethical
Hmm.
Slut, Polysecure, you know, and, and I think I feel, and I'm glad for this, that the field is evolving and growing. Like there used to be some very rigid sort of thinking. I mean, when the Ethical Slut came out in the 80s, like that was like very freeing. But over the last, like I would say, decade, with relationship anarchy becoming a lot more popular and the non-hierarchical and all of these sort of like, yes, it's so important for us to look at the systemic oppressions that have created monogamy and couple privilege and the patriarchy. So important for us to look at those. And yes, I think it's such an ideal to want to dismantle all of those. And I'm loving that these books are talking about how to be realistic in dismantling it, right? Like realistic with our bodies, like the somatic piece is so cool, right? I'm so glad people are talking about that. Talking about different, like the entire book, Polywise, is for people that are opening up and struggling. Like it is a thick book about struggling with non monogamy. Like we need more books like that because I think a lot of people believe in it And the reality is that it's a lot more difficult, you know, in our, with the monogamous culture that we are in, to undo those things. So I think it's time for Shades of Pleasure to write a book.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's kind of doing that natural penduluming effect, you know, where, yeah, it makes sense to kind of go all the way over here to
Mhm.
counter monogamy and, you know, but
Mhm.
then we need to balance that out again and keep doing that.
Yeah, we
To
need to
kind
be
of meet the needs
realistic.
of the I think the middle, like the right,
Yeah,
like what did Dr. what's I forgot her name. She talks about
Johnny.
Dr. Jana, yeah, talks about like very few people are all the way monogamous or all the way non-monogamous. Like
right.
most people are in the
In the
spectrum
gray
of the
area,
middle of the gray
right?
area.
And that's the beautiful part, is like it's so different for everyone. And in order to make this sustainable and for it to grow into a much more viable option for people, it has to be sustainable, right? And so those like extreme ideas of it has to be like this is not going to make this a sustainable thing for people.
Has to be sustainable and ironically the sustainability often comes in the allowing the evolving of that and what that looks like, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. Mic drop.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. Kelly, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say, you know, I think we all agree that these are really great concepts and they're wonderful and they're great for people to look at them. Then I was just thinking, as far as like listeners are concerned, do you think it's worth going through and just talking about what that looks like pragmatically in the relationship? And but then as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, you kind of, not to make it completely black and white, but just for ease of conversation, they're the people that would be practicing this that already have opened their relationship, and the people that would potentially practicing this that haven't opened their relationship. Do you think it's worth kind of talking about what these, how these concepts actually show up in your relationship and what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, and how to navigate. I'd love that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's too big of a door to open, but I don't know.
Mm-mm. I
Why
think that
don't
it's important for us to give give our listeners, you know, like actionable tips that they can use and things like that.
I think you
yeah,
mentioned
so
some at the beginning, didn't you, of the titrating and the
Mm. The
uh
titrating in the nervous system.
yeah, but what does that
Um,
actually like?
I
Let's
was about to
talk
say,
about what
like,
that
yeah, some
actually
people don't even
looks
know what
like.
titrating means.
yeah, let's break it down. I think,
Okay.
um, yeah, do you want to talk about like nervous system regulation, Kelly? And then I can jump in with the titrating piece.
Um, Actually, I'd rather you start with the titrating piece.
Okay, so basically, what she's talking about, the titrating, I believe this is in the book, The Polyamory Paradox. Um, but they both talk about it in Polywise and Polyamory Paradox. So um, basically, let's say you're just opening up. Initially, you might do, so I'm getting the two books confused because I'm pretty sure that she talked about this in Polywise, like differentiating, you know, like we mentioned, going on once a week where you and your partner do something not together, right? Like maybe once a week you go on a friend date and once a week your partner goes somewhere without you, right? Like beginning the process of differentiation, like making sure you have interests that are different from each other, making sure you have friends that are different from each other, making sure you go out and do things without each other.
Untangling any kind of enmeshment. I think that's
Yeah.
the best way to say it.
Yeah. And Jessica Fern talks about doing this like over a period of like 3 or 4 months, right? Like that's really slow. And I think when we were talking about what we see as therapists and coaches, I think we were like, oh yeah, clients are like all on board for that. But then like the next thing you know, they come into a session, they're like, well, we did it, you know? So it's also important to recognize that, you know, I think a lot of these are best laid plans and sometimes they won't happen. Um, And then titrating basically means, so titrating is like a term that I've heard used with pharmaceuticals a lot. Like basically, like if you're on antidepressants, you're taking like a 50 milligram dose. Titrating means like, okay, next week you're going to go down by 5 milligrams. You're going to go down to 45 milligrams dose, and you're going to do that for 2 to 3 weeks. Then you're going to titrate down to 40 milligrams. You're going to do that for 2 to 3 weeks. Like every step, you're going to do it incrementally, little by little, and you're going to do that for an extended period of time. So your body gets used to it, right? So in somatic therapy or somatic, what is it called? Your body, there's a window of tolerance basically. And what they're talking about, the window is growing your window of tolerance by doing things incrementally. Right?
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to start with that, because I think that's the perfect overlap with moving into the somatic part. Or am I cutting you short?
No, go ahead. You're perfect.
Yeah, and so the same way that it would be with a pharmaceutical, or the same way it could be with your behaviors, there's your nervous system is going through this as well, and so it has to be able to keep up with any like flooding or any anxiety or anything that's coming up, because I feel like if people are doing this kind of work, they maybe already pay attention to their bodies quite a bit, but you sort of have to know what your baseline is. Like, this is what I feel like in a normal day when I'm not excited. This is what I feel like in a normal day when I'm not depressed. This is what I feel like in a normal day when I'm not experiencing jealousy or any kind of ruptures with my partner. And really knowing what that feels like in your body, because our mind and our body are feeding off of each other all the time. And so if you can understand something, and it makes sense to you logically, that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's going to feel fine, right? And so to be able to do that incrementally as well, so that you're paying attention to your body, you're paying attention to what is motivating you, and slowly letting your nervous system get caught up to that as well. But again, you have to understand what these things are, because we all do things from such a knee-jerk reaction, right? And then it's often later we can say, oh my gosh, I wish I'd not yelled, or I wish I'd not done that. And really, it was just our body taking over and sort of flooding our brain and having a big reaction. And there's a lot to be learned from those reactions and why it's happening. And so, just the same way as it would be with a pharmaceutical, or it is with differentiation or anything like that, you've got to give your body the same amount of respect and time to catch up. Does that kind of, is that what, I mean, I didn't read that book, so I don't want to speak out of term. Does that match up with what she's saying?
Yeah. And, she actually talks about, if I can take it a step further, like how do we regulate our bodies? One of the things that she talks about, which I think is profound, obviously, and easy to implement, is when you feel like what Kelly's talking about is like knowing your baseline. Like, this is what I feel like when I feel safe, when I'm not anxious, when I'm not depressed, when I'm not worried. This is my baseline. And when you notice that dysregulation happening, one of the things she talks about is like starting to notice when you notice it. Like, are you noticing it at 3? Are you noticing it at 5? Are you noticing it at 10 when you're already like flying off the handle, right?
Yeah.
So getting better about recognizing when you're noticing it. And then the minute you notice it, stepping into some grounding techniques, right away. And some of the easiest things are taking a sip of water. A lot of times, like if our body's dehydrated, it's going to feel even more dysregulated. Allowing yourself to rest, taking a nap, going to bed early, taking the afternoon off work because of, like you need to rest, so your body can regulate itself better. So rest, drinking water, and then getting food, putting food into your body. Like, oh, I can't tell you how many times I've been dysregulated and I'm like, oh, I haven't eaten for 6 or 7 hours. Mm-hmm. Right? Like when we're hungry, we can get hangry, and that can contribute to our dysregulation. So making sure you're hydrated, nourished, and rested is like some of the very basic, easy tools to begin that process of re-regulating yourself.
Yeah, and then to bring sort of front loading back full circle, that would be the kind of thing that you could front load around. Like, hey, I'm really trying to practice understanding when I'm having a response. And so this is something you could expect me to do. Or I need you to understand if I walk away, it's going to be because I'm taking care of one of these things. And so if we want to bring this back to not just how you take care of yourself, but how you take care of the relationship and how you communicate through all this, that would be something to front load. Hey, this is something I'm working on. This is what it might look like, so that the person isn't feeling rejected, the person doesn't feel like you're just walking away. And, that, I don't know, that just kind of ties those two things together.
Man, you two are giving some great information today. Like honestly, like I don't even think and I speak for myself. I know that I didn't even understand and think about like my nervous system and having to regulate my body and all these type of things until I started to really start to feel what my body was feeling. I don't even think that we're even taught to feel what our body is feeling. Like we're taught to kind of ignore and push through these things and kind of like, so how will we even know that these things are actually things that are affecting how we operate or interact with people or let alone ourselves, So I think this is some really good information today that you guys are giving. I think this is going to be so helpful to people who are again just coming into this and just kind of like learning, because then once you start to learn what guys just talked about, you start to learn how to take a pause and take a moment before you speak, or if you start to see yourself getting activated, how you can kind of slow yourself down, or how I can show up in this moment in this conversation that I already know is activating to me, or this feels hard for me or uncomfortable for me. Like it is literally setting the foundation or the groundwork to become a better communicator when things are feeling hard or when having to have a tough conversation.
Yeah, and Wayne, think about how unnerving it is when somebody starts to show up differently, right? Like if you're used to having ruptures with people who, when they get mad, they raise their voice, they maybe slam doors, they need to walk out, whatever. Like that's upsetting, but that's how they operate and you're used to it. Think about how disconcerting it would be if all of a sudden that person got quiet and took a deep breath and said, I need a moment, and left the room. That even though that's probably a better, more healthy response, that would be really scary to the person. It's like, wait, hold on, what's going on? I don't understand you. And even though what's happening is healthy, that could cause bigger problems because the other person wasn't ready for it. And so that's where the front loading comes in of I'm practicing self-awareness. I'm practicing taking care of my nervous system. And so, this is what it's going to look like, because I don't know why I keep bringing that in, but I just feel like that's really scary when people start to change in a big way and nobody really understands or knows what that's about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead,
I
Wayne.
was gonna say prime example between me and Melissa. Like when we first got together, Melissa was a person who would take a moment or kind of like go silent, and that would be like, oh damn, she don't want to be with me no more. Is she trying to break up? She going to leave me? Like uh-oh, because there was no response, and I'm thinking that I need that response so I can know where we are, and yeah, so yes, Kelly, that could be hella scary to somebody who was used to dealing with, big reactions and big
Yeah.
voices and all the things. So
Well,
yes.
we create homeostasis in our relationships, right? So, like, there's a natural state for our relationship. And when a partner starts acting in a different way, the homeostasis becomes disrupted, right? And
Oh,
then
yeah.
our nervous systems become disrupted. And so that's what Kelly's talking about is like any change, even if it's positive, can be scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we're talking about self-regulation, and I want to give a few more examples of self-regulation, and then I want to do some co-regulation, because I think that like we forget how important co-regulation can also be. But because we don't need to self-regulate alone all the time, right? Like, yes, it's so important to be able to do that, but also to be able to co-regulate is another really, I think, even more intense and expansive way to heal our nervous systems. But a couple other things that you can do to self-regulate include like taking a walk, which is something I often do. I take a walk with my headphones because the music and the walking helps. But other things that you can do, journaling, Sounding like or humming, just like letting sound come out of your mouth can be very grounding. Intentional tantruming, which is yelling into a pillow or punching cushions. Journaling, exercise, breathing. There's several breathing techniques where I think you inhale for 4 and then you exhale for like 6 or 8. So the exhale is actually longer. And then, inhale and then exhale again for longer. So inhaling for 4 seconds and exhaling for 6 to 8 seconds can really regulate your body. Singing, for those of you who are into your voice chakra, like letting the voice come out of your mouth can be extremely regulating. Taking a bath, massaging, dancing. I know Melissa does a lot of dancing.
Yeah.
If you're hyper aroused, like your heart is beating really fast, you might try putting an ice pack on your chest, or a heating pad on your lower back, and then balancing, where you're like shifting your weight from one foot to another, are all really great ways of bringing your body back to equilibrium. And then, should we do a little co-regulating?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since Melissa and Wayne are together in the same room, can we use you as the example?
Of course.
Okay. So Melissa and Wayne, why don't you two turn and face each other? Like, instead of sitting shoulder to shoulder, like you do on a couch, turn and face and sit and face each other. Okay. And now I want you to hold hands. I want you to look into each other's eyes. And I want you to tell the other person 3 things that you love and appreciate about them. We can't hear you, Melissa.
I love
Okay.
and appreciate your humor and your lighter perspective of life. I love and appreciate your encouragement towards me for the things that feel scary that like I could kick ass at. And I love and appreciate how well you connect with people, bring people together, and can build groups and communities very easily.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's see. I love your patience. Wow. Yeah, I love your patience. I love your ability to just leave from this heartfelt place. Like, it feels amazing. Like, as I told you, I didn't think it was real, so it's amazing. And to kind of come back to co-regulating, I love how you actually do help to regulate me because of your tonality when we're talking a lot of times, the way you kind of show up and you just help me feel calm. Like, even if I'm in a big space, my heart is racing and my reaction feels big, you help bring me back and you kind of help me to not be in such a overreactive or huge space. So thank you.
Nice. All right. Next, I want you to give each other a hug. Okay. And take a long, deep inhale. And then exhale. Relax your facial muscles. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. Relax your belly. And then last one. Inhale. And exhale. Relax your shoulders. All right. Nice work.
Thank you, Mo.
I love doing this. I do this, obviously, you guys know that I do this at the end of my couple sessions with my couples, but how do you feel after doing that?
Yeah,
Like, look, you're all cuddled up now, and
I definitely feel lighter. The funny thing is, I don't know if you guys noticed because we put ourselves on mute for a second. I was telling, he was like, "You okay? You're checking in with me," and I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm hungry. I think I'm getting to that hungry place. It's hot in here. There was like so much going on." And I am still very hungry, but I do feel a little bit lighter and, less tense and restricted. So I feel more expansive. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And because I felt her energy, I was starting to feel a little antsy and yeah, because I'm like, oh, okay, this is not okay right now. But now I'm feeling relaxed after just kind of checking in and just like, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good sign that the nervous system is starting to kind of, I know that to calm, like the yawning. I just yawned.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah,
good.
that's a good sign. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, get
That
some.
other one, that I don't think you included this one, Mo, but I like it when they put their foreheads together and take a few deep breaths like that. You didn't include that, did you, or did I just
No,
miss
we
that?
didn't do that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Just wanted to throw that one in.
yeah, some people do that. I actually don't do the foreheads together, but that is another good one. Any type of breathing that couples do together, intentional breathing, holding hands, like it can be holding hands, it can be holding thighs, whatever, because touch is extremely regulating, right? Breathing is extremely regulating. And then when two people do those together in sync, that's extremely regulating. So, however you want to do that, you get to choose. That's just one example of how I do it with my couples in session.
I'd
Yeah.
like to offer, this might feel a little backwards and counter, so I don't know, apologize if so, but you talked about kind of knowing and feeling your baseline. And I know we're focusing on co-regulating, but just to kind of also get a sense of and practice of, like what you said too, Wayne, of like even being able to notice what we're feeling in our bodies or whatnot. There's the activity where, excuse me, you start off at a, you know, certain distance from each other and you kind of move away from each other and notice like any changes in your body, move closer to each other and kind of notice any reactions or sensations in your body and what that feels like. And, again, just information, just way of practicing of kind of noticing what you're feeling in your body and, um, at any given moment or whatnot. So yeah, I felt like there was a
Yeah.
second part to that. Go ahead, Kelly.
It all requires so much self-awareness, and that's a practice, right? And
Mhm.
so just being able to gently remind yourself, or having an agreement with your partner where they can gently remind you to, like, hey, let's come back to self-awareness. What's happening for you?
Mhm.
Because that's where it all starts. You don't know what your baseline is if you don't have any self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to do. We're out here living our lives. It's hard to take a moment and check in with ourselves, but it's a good practice.
I think before, I wanted to offer this too, before like we were ever had this level of self-awareness and, um, into doing kind of these self-regulating and co-regulating practices, which sometimes even as a person who is aware, sometimes that me personally, I'm like, ugh, that's the last thing I want to do. Those like those little things, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sorry, but even when I was a therapist, going to a therapist, and they started talking about box breathing and countify, all that stuff. Like I offer it and I like it. It's just also sometimes I remember I was in a point in my life or a space where I was like, fuck your box breathing. Like that's not gonna work for me, like give me something else. So I just wanted to say that too for others that might be feeling that way and how when you are, activated, those small little things can not, it can feel like it's not really doing anything or making a difference. So to your point, Kelly, it's a practice and yeah, and to give it to me. But also I was gonna say, prior to that awareness, one way that I feel like helped to regulate Wayne and I that we didn't notice until hindsight was being around other people, like as a couple. I think oftentimes when we were get into our conflicts and whatnot, it can feel like it just happens in this little bubble, this vacuum and bubble together. And so when we would just happen to, it's not like we planned this or consciously did it, but when we would happen to be around other people, other couples or family or whatnot, we can feel the shift between us. We were lighter, and it wasn't like we were putting on a front. It genuinely just I don't know, we just our focus, we reorient, or I guess we focus on something else that it kind of,
Totally.
relaxes us or whatnot. And then we're able to meet each other in a different way after the fact, and things are just a little bit lighter after the fact. So I just thought that was a great, example too of an extension of co-regulation where it might not happen just between the
Mhm.
couple, but in community,
In
with
community
other
for
people. And I
sure.
think
And
that is
getting
a
out of
way,
your bubble.
getting out
Yes.
of your bubble, getting out of the house, getting out. Yes, exactly. Like that can, and I think that's a big thing that's, really needed and missing today, is that community and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's often, I think, missed in traditional therapies, including the larger, what do you call it?
The community at
The community,
large.
yeah, at large,
Yeah.
the social systems and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think
Okay.
we
Yeah.
are out of time for today. So,
Great stuff. Thank you. And we'll see you all on the next episode.
Yay.
bye. Thank you for listening. Shades of Pleasure podcast is currently unsponsored and is brought to you by Los Angeles Sex Therapy and Last Collective in partnership with Shades Therapy and Shades of Non-Monogamy. To support our endeavor so we can continue to bring this pleasurable content, please visit our Substack at shadesofpleasure.substack.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time.